Hello and welcome to another one of our videos where we're going to be looking at strength and endurance, and the big problem many people playing sports have trying to combine the two elements together, and why they sort of oppose each other so much. So many sports demand that you have high levels of strength and power, but also be able to sustain these for like 2 to 3 hours. So in games of basketball, football, hockey, soccer to some degree, but especially sports that demand a high level of strength. All right, so it means that you have to sort of train for both things at the same time, which is really physiology tells us that they oppose each other, because when you're sort of training strength, it cancels out endurance, and endurance cancels out strength. So it's really trying to be a 100-metre sprinter and a marathon runner at the same time. It's just physically impossible. So all good coaches, athletes understand that and really know that the best way to train them is on their own, and that's when you would use a periodization program of sort of cycling through different phases to get the best out of both and peaking at the right time, which is perfect for the Olympics or something that's a 2-week thing. But unfortunately for something that's like a sporting season that runs for several months of the year, that's it's far from ideal, and really quality is very much compromised for just more work, which really gives you great endurance base, but compromises really made with the strength, power and speed. So not only does that just ruin your elite performance, but also promotes fatigue and increases the risk of your injury. So one of the things that we're always asked is, there a way that you can minimise the losses of your strength and power by just a smarter implementation of the type of training that you use? So there is a few things that you can try. Before we get into that, we'll define what each one of these is, so you're crystal clear on the difference of the two and why they oppose each other so much. So strength, speed and power are really defined by short bouts of close to maximal effort. And this is where you're really increasing protein synthesis, but making huge improvements in strength and muscle size, and also explosiveness for power and speed. On the flip side of that, you've got your endurance training, which is long duration instead of short duration, and it's sub-maximal effort instead of maximal effort. So this type of training improves your ability to use oxygen to produce energy. So that's where it's very much needed for fitness. So you can see why fitness sort of really becomes the most important thing early on, but for ultimate elite performance, it really comes back to this side of things. So you're really wanting both, but it's really difficult to do both at the same time. So why is it so difficult? The reason has to do with the enzymes. So the two different enzymes that oppose each other are the mTORC1, which is your strength one, and the AMPK, which is your endurance one. Basically, the endurance enzyme, so that's released when you're doing endurance training, blocks the activation of this one and vice versa. But because most of the training load and the game itself is sort of lends towards being in endurance, there's a hell of a lot more of this around. So it's easier to build endurance, but it's really difficult to build this. Endurance is easier to build anyway, because technique is not because it's not maximal effort, so technique is not as high a priority, where power and strength, technique is everything. There's huge risk working with maximal effort, where sub-maximal not so much. All right, so the main thing to understand here is that the two of them block each other. So when you've got one in the system too much, it blocks the other one from improving. So I sort of like to think of this as being like kryptonite to Superman. It really sort of weakens him off. Just can't really do much when there's too much of this AMPK enzyme active from so much endurance training. Alright, so what can you do about it? Well, there's several things you can do. There's really 5 things that I've sort of listed here. First one's pretty simple. Include power exercise. It's amazing how little people actually understand what a power exercise is and really don't use them. So if you don't use them, you're never really teaching yourself to move fast anyway. So you could get all these other things right, but you don't include the right exercise, it's not going to happen. So first thing first, always include power exercises, and we'll go over each one of these for you in detail in a minute. Next one's a big one. It's in training endurance first. So like I said, this all comes back to the enzymes and the release of them, and playing with the timing of them, and And then in the next point, sort of looking at how you replenish one so that it's not still active and it turns itself off so you can release the next one. These two things here are really, really important. The next one is looking at the strength sessions, keeping them quite short. If the duration goes too long, it lends itself towards endurance again, which is what you don't really want too much of because you already have enough. And the last one is, even within your endurance session, trying to incorporate some of the high intensity work so it lends itself to promoting some of the enzyme that you have the least of. Alright, so let's have a look at each one in detail. So firstly, power training is pretty simple. You just really want to have some exercises that really activate the fast twitch motor units, and they have to be done at high speed. Alright, so power training is not about lifting heavy weights, it's about lifting things quickly or moving fast, like plyometric things. So unlike slow twitch motor units, which are responsible for the slow and long periods of work, the fast twitch guys work a short amount of work and at really high speed. So, for example, Olympic lifting is sort of the most common one that people think of, but for many this is quite a dangerous exercise. The technique's just not quite there. And it's not the be-all and end-all. There's many medicinal exercises that will give you as great a benefit of that for sports as what this ever will. Box jumps, plyometric exercises are all excellent examples of power training. If you refer to the description under the video here, I've got some links there that you can go to that'll give you even more examples. But just understand you need some sort of power training within your strength workouts to maximise moving quickly. Endurance first, so this is a big one. So like I mentioned quickly before, the main reason behind this is all to do with the enzymes. So if the endurance exercise is performed first thing in the morning, and then you replace the glycogen that you've lost and refuel and the cells immediately after the session, then the enzyme AMPK will be low later in the day when you go to complete your strength workout. This means there's less chance of it blocking the activation of your strength enzymes, which gives you everything you want for adding your muscle and for your strength and power development. Alright, so just by doing this first can make a huge difference. The only concern I have with this is if your technique is faulty with strength training, or maybe you're carrying an existing injury, it may not be wise to do that because you might be too fatigued come your strength workout, quality's compromised, you're already not doing things well anyway. Now there's a huge risk with your strength workout. You may actually injure yourself in your strength workout, which will defeat the purpose of training altogether. So in that case, I would probably prefer the strength workout done first. Alright, but if all things going well, endurance first. A little quote here just to reiterate that. Just always remember, before you try to improve performance, always make sure you're doing things perfectly. So good quote from Ray Cook: move well, then move more. Alright, so you never move more with faulty movement, you're just going to create more problems. The next one is the big one and it's tied to the previous one. So, and to be honest, nutrition is probably the most neglected part, especially with the amateur athletes looking for heaps of crazy workout ideas and the latest science on how to train, but really don't give a lot of thought to their food and recovery. So this is very, very important because this is where you can refuel the lost glycogen stores quickly and be able to shut down that AMPK enzyme. Alright, so you want to be able to do that pretty much straight after your endurance session, and then prior to your strength workout, eat a snack that contains some good protein right before it to help deliver the amino acids to the working muscles. Since the blood flow is increased to these muscles, you will see more amino acids and it'll be able to assist the activation of the TORC1 enzyme, right, which will give you, so you're going to maximise this enzyme and turn that one off, which is exactly what you want. You can do that within the same day if the type of training is correct and the nutrition matches it. Alright. With your short strength training sessions, I tend to go between 4 to 8 reps. Several reasons for that. Promotes more maximal strength gains, and it actually matches the power and speed intensity a lot quicker too. If the power and speed, say medicine ball exercise, you could easily do them 15 times, but if you're doing them 15 times, you're turning it into an endurance exercise. You really don't want to feel the burn on it, you just want to be able to move it really, really fast. The exercise should be over really quickly. Second reason for keeping them short is it minimises muscle damage. That often is like what people feel with DOMs. That leaves them really sore hardly move the next day. That would be no good if they have to train for their sport the next day, or they say even worse, they've got a game the next day. So that's where you see a lot of footy players avoid doing leg exercise for that reason. If they had been doing their leg exercises with shorter reps and the time under tension less, they wouldn't have had the DOMs. They would have had maximum strength gains without the DOMs. The last thing, which is another important one, it keeps the metabolic stress low. And by doing that, it minimises that endurance enzyme again and activates more of the strength one. All right, so there's several key elements to keeping your short workouts. All right. Also, make sure you take long breaks. To work with maximum intensity, you need longer rest. So you'll often see people cramming in more and more exercises like a circuit. Again, it turns it into an endurance workout. It's exactly what you don't want. Power and speed, always remember, can only be developed in very short bursts. If it takes too long, you just turn on the slow twitch guys, and you want the fast twitch guys. Last thing that we would do is include some high intensity training with your endurance workouts. So this is where, again, are playing with the enzymes. If the endurance enzyme is activated by all types of exercise, but it responds the most to higher metabolic stress, that means the higher the intensity, the higher the metabolic stress you can generate if it's done for a long period of time. So best way to do that is to add some interval training at the end of your endurance workout. So if you even at the end of your game training session, you might add some 10 sets of 20 metres sprints or something, or battling ropes, or some quick boxing sessions that are just short and sharp but really, really fast with a few sets in a row. That will give you that high metabolic load that promotes that plays around with the enzymes again. So you're trying to maximise your endurance as well as maximise your other stuff, because we don't want to compromise this. It means you may not finish out games. So you can't compromise fitness and endurance, but you just don't want it to come at the cost of your strength and power. So you're trying to get the best of both worlds, and these are ways that you can do that. The last thing to just bear in mind is monitor the workload of how much you're doing, because it's very easy to overtrain and just become totally fatigued, and then injury, illness is always just around the corner. All right, so this is a good little chart here that sort of gives you an example of, if I'm doing a really high strength workout, I'm not going to say it's Monday, I'm not going to be doing it till Thursday. All right, I've sort of factoring in that there's also going to be training around this. I'll make sure recovery is good before I come back and do it again. So, meaning that it's really hard to try and get more than 2 hard workouts like that in a week. Really, you might be able to do a hell of a lot more when you're in the off-season time. Easily can do a lot more, and you don't need the endurance at that time of year. So that's when you really go crazy with that stuff, and that's the periodization again. But during the season, you're sort of trying to make the best of both. All right, and your strength and speed and power are really done with at least that 2 days between. All right, so just bear that in mind when you're applying these principles, and you should be fine. All right, so if you want more ideas, go to our website, check out the heaps of articles, there's free reports, the functional training report, it's a free report you can download, gives you heaps of ideas on exercise techniques and tips. The little black book gives you a stack of programs, a lot of sport specific ones in there, and a lot of sport strength ones. There's about 40 different strength ones, just specific to strength training, different methods you can apply. So I'd suggest to grab a copy of that. That'll give you heaps of ideas on how to put it all together. All right, so hope you enjoy that video, and we'll see you on our next one.